Superhero Academy podcast with your host, Rusty.
Hello. So, Mark Pola here with the Superhero Academy, coming from not Valhalla today, actually my parents' house, Easter weekend. And I've got with me here Phil Drolet, the creator of the Feel Good Lifestyle, one of the most inspiring people in my life, that's for sure, that I know personally at least. And he's actually the man who I did my first ever podcast with. So I couldn't bear but have anybody else be my first guest. Hey, Phil, how's it going?
Hey, Mark. Thanks for having me, buddy. I'm happy to kick off this party with you.
All right. So for people who are listening, people who might follow Valhalla or Superhero Academy, which is kind of this new podcast, tell us who you are, what are you doing, quick rendition of where your life has taken you, how you've started the Feel Good Lifestyle, and what it's all about.
Sure. So I'm from Saint-Bruno in Quebec, which is a small town about 20 minutes from Valhalla. Grew up there, went to school in Vancouver, was a high-level swimmer for many years, reached the national junior team. Graduated college, got a pretty decent job working for Anheuser-Busch InBev, which is the biggest beer company in the world. So kind of like a cool job for a young grad. Lots of free beer, lots of parties, and good money. But really quickly I realized that there was something missing, and essentially at that point my purpose in the world boiled down to convincing people to drink more Budweiser instead of drinking Coors Light. That's what it came down to, and I kind of had this inkling that I had something greater to offer to the world. So I quit that job, even though everybody was saying that I should stick with it. I should just be grateful for what I had, but I didn't listen to anyone. I just quit the job. Was unemployed for 5 months and kind of a little bit confused. I grew a beard and wore sweatpants for pretty much every day for 5 months, trying to figure out the next step. And nothing was really working out at that point. I couldn't find a job. So I ended up going to grad school in Australia. Not so much because I wanted to go to grad school, but mostly because I wanted to go to Australia and have like an excuse to go. And my parents were like, okay, he's going to grad school. That's a respectable thing to do. So I went off to Perth in Australia, the most remote big city in the world. And it's almost like, as far as like a story go of a, superhero, that was my having to go away to the other side of the world, literally 40,000 kilometers from my hometown to kind of figure things out. And when I was there, I got into personal development. I started reading, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, listening to Tony Robbins, Tim Ferriss, Brent Johnson, these kinds of guys, and applying what I was learning from them. And it was phenomenal. Really, as soon as I started applying these things, I felt more confident, happier, just felt better in general. So at that point, I figured I had to start sharing this with the world. And that's why I created the Feel Good Lifestyle and started sharing my strategies, my stories to kind of pass on, share the good word with the people.
Okay, that's awesome. And so where did the name the Feel Good Lifestyle come from for you? Like what, it seems like I totally get it. I mean, there's so many people out there that just want to be, to help other people, to extend helping hands, to inspire other people. But what is the Feel Good Lifestyle to you? Like what would you say is your goal? What is your ultimate Feel Good Lifestyle?
Yeah, well, the way I see it is our life is just really a collection of days. So, let's say we're going to live 100 years. Really, it's just one day. It's today is our life. And then tonight we die, so to speak, and tomorrow we're born again and we have another little life. And the next day is the same. So really my intention is to make each day as good as I can and really learn as much as I can, have as much fun as I can, contribute. And to be able to do that, I need to feel good. I need to have energy. I need to be in a good mood. And I've realized that there's certain rituals and practices and mental models you can use, or I can use on a daily basis, that make me feel good. So most people kind of go through the day on autopilot, and I try to just be more intentional in how I structure my day, the things I do in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, to make me feel as good, as inspired as possible. So I then can go out in the world and create more change and have more success and, achieve my goals.
That's awesome. I mean, I totally can level with that. I mean, the number of, I've heard you use this term before, but life hacks, right? Like what are the things that we can do to our diet, to our physicality, to our efficiency that would make us achieve the goals that we want to achieve. But before achieving some of those goals, I mean, there's a lot of people who are out there who they're trying to figure out what their goals are and they can how they can manifest what they really want. But before manifesting that, I mean, do you think it is important to feel good first and then your goals and what you want in life will come to you? Or do you think you have to kind of understand what you want before you'll ever start feeling good? Because I think there's, I used to think that way. I used to think that I gotta know what I want before I'll ever feel good, or before I'll ever feel happy, before I'll ever feel fulfilled. And I think over time I started to realize, you know what? No, maybe it starts with me. Maybe I have to eat right and exercise and be healthy, and be healthy mentally too, before I really am going to figure all those things out.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's really interesting. And, they're not like mutually exclusive. They kind of all come together to some degree. But I was recently listening to an amazing TEDx talk by a guy named Eric Klantenberg. And the name of the talk was The Anatomy of Success.
Mm-hmm.
And in that talk, he talks about how there's 3 components to success. So the first one is your intention. So that's your goals. That's kind of what that shining star that you're going after.
Yeah.
The second one is your state. So, how do you feel? And the third one is your actions. And then he was asking the audience, what do you think is the most important if you're trying to reach success? What's the breakdown? If it's like, is it 30%, 40%? And essentially the best performers in the world, for them, state is about 60% of the equation. So to answer your question, and to me, as soon as I heard that, it resonated with me, it felt true. Because really, when you're feeling good, it's like if you're feeling shitty, you're not going to have this extra energy to go out and do that extra, put on that extra hour of work or help that person or smile to someone on the street. You're just, in survival mode. Whereas when you're in that good state, you're thriving. You want to do more. You want to do that extra, kilometer on your run. You want to, hold the door for someone. You want to help your friend out. And really, it starts with that. So for me, my state is the most important thing. So I build these blocks in my day that kind of guarantee that I'm going to feel good every day. And then from there, reaching the goals it becomes a game because you're energized and inspired.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, inspiration can come from anywhere, but I mean, I think, yeah, as you just said, I mean, feeling good is the number one thing that, I mean, I think it sounds like the ultimate goal. I think maybe that's why your company resonates with so many people is how can you end up on the Facebook page of Feel Good Lifestyle and not think, yeah, nah, you know what? I'd rather not feel good. I'd rather not support something like that, But I actually saw that TED Talk too. I mean, it is fantastic. And it's funny because, and we've had many discussions at length about this, and I've started a whole company called Why Simply Because. But you mentioned that it's the first thing that people need to kind of align themselves with is kind of their intentions, right? Like, what are your intentions? There's so many people who are out there and they're like, they don't know what they exactly want to do, but they seem to forget to think about what do they spend their time doing? What do they enjoy doing? And that generally will align themselves with what they would want to do. Like a lot of people would say, I want to travel. I want to see the world. It's a common thing. I've heard this 1,000 times, for example. Or I've heard a lot of women say, I want to take care of kids, or I'd love to be a teacher, or all kinds of different roles that people want to embody. The question is, how can people move in that right direction? I mean, what would you suggest is the number one thing that somebody can do to kind of bring out their inner superhuman, their inner powers that they have to kind of focus in on something and start feeling good? Like, where does it start with you? Is it diet? Is it working out? Is it writing your ideas down? Like, what would you do first?
That's an interesting question. I mean, there's different answers I could give. One that I think is really the foundation of a good day is how you start your day. So the analogy I like to use is imagine that you're a high-level violinist, like world-class violinist, and you're about to go perform in front of an audience of 1,000 people at a big concert hall somewhere. Well, before you went on stage, you'd make sure that you're backstage, you're warming up, you're tuning your instrument, you're getting ready for this performance, so that when you go on stage, you're ready to rock. Well, the way I look at it, each day is a performance. It's we're trying to, like I said, it's our life. Today is our life. So I think it's really important to be intentional with how we spend the first 15 minutes of our day, and to use that not as I'm going to get up and I'm going to hit snooze 5 times and go around, make some coffee and, kind of rush around the house to leave to work. But I'm going to create space, 10 to 15 minutes, where whatever for me, whatever is going to make me optimal in my for my performance during the day. Well, that's what I'm going to do. So in my case, this is meditation, yoga, taking a cold shower, having a superfood smoothie. I do that every single morning. So if you're at home listening to this, I would invite you. Let's say you're going to devote your first 15 minutes of the day to doing activities that are going to make you feel good. What would that be for you? Is it going to be to write in your journal? Is it going to be to think about 5 things you're grateful for? Is it going to be to dance for a few minutes? What makes you feel good? And start the day with that, because then you kind of start with a lot of momentum, and it's just a really easy thing to do.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I've been trying to instill this new routine in my life where every day I try and do certain things in the morning, because you're right. Like, starting your day right is probably the most important thing. I mean, where else to start than the start of your day when you wake up? And that's, a new day. You have a new set of emotions that you're carrying with you. Sometimes your dreams play into your start of your day, but most of the time it's just a fresh start. And I started doing this thing where, like, I pick days of the week, and different days of the week I try and do different stuff. Like, Monday mornings was my dance day, and I would wake up and dance, and that was one of the first things that I would do. And I think it's important that these things are sometimes outside of, like, work and stuff too. Like, like, there's a lot of tasks that, for example, I'd love to get done. I absolutely know you're busy all the time too. But picking a task that is, like, not really work related, but that is more for yourself, starting with you, and then kind of moving outwards into, okay, now I have to start feeding my stomach, maybe, is the next thing. And then eventually you start answering your emails or checking your Facebook or your phone or whatever it is. But yeah, I think starting your day right is probably one of the best things that you can do. But what happens, and this is, I think a lot of people want to hear this, and I'm sure some of your audience members and people who follow Valhalla, they think we're at 100% all the time. We're on the go, we're moving, and you know what? They might not be wrong. I mean, I think sometimes, a lot of the time, we are really operating at a level that is probably very flabbergasting to other people, or they don't understand. No, but it's true. Sometimes they don't understand how the hell we get so much done in a day. But the question is, when you're not feeling good, when you feel like you're going to burn out, or when you feel down, what are some of the things that you have practiced or done, or where do you go? What does Phil do when he's feeling down to get back in the groove?
Yeah, well, that definitely happens. I mean, it's part of the human experience. But, just on that point, first, the morning ritual is kind of like something that whatever state sometimes I wake up, I didn't sleep well, or, whatever happened, I wake up and I'm a little bit tired. After my morning ritual, it's automatic. I feel a whole lot better. So that kind of guarantees that I'm going to boost myself. Let's say I woke up and I was a 4 out of 10. I'm automatically a 7 or 8 after my morning ritual. That being said, so through the day, if I'm getting tired, one thing I really like to do these days is when I'm working and I just I just get really tired, I meditate for 5 minutes, and I put on a song by Enya. You probably know Enya. She's like this Celtic singer. I don't know what her style is.
Yes.
So I listen to this one song. It's Caribbean Blue, and I just meditate to this Enya song, and it's magical. I open my eyes 5 minutes later. I'm like, all right, let's go. So that's one. Another one that I do. So every night, I work big days these days. I'm working a lot of projects. It takes a lot of hours, and I work after dinner, but right after dinner, I always go and lay down and watch something funny for about 20 minutes. I found that laughter is just this amazing way. It does something to your neurotransmitters. It kind of like replenishes your brain. So if you're kind of out of it, go watch whatever your funniest TV show is, or go watch some stand-up comedy on YouTube. Just something to make you laugh. 20 minutes later, you'll feel a whole lot better, and you'll be ready to get back into action.
Yeah, I mean, laughter, oh man. Again, nailing things is out of the park. It's amazing how, even from Boulder, Colorado, I think these things are completely universal. I mean, I know, I'm sure Marty's going to watch something like this, but Marty is the biggest advocator in my life, I guess, for laughing, and we practice this thing called laughing yoga. I don't know. Have you heard of this? Like, have you heard of laughing yoga?
I've done it a few times. Yeah, just thinking about it makes me laugh because it's
Yeah,
so ridiculous, but it's so cool at the same time.
completely ridiculous. But there's apparently a science behind it. I have not personally read up on it, but I have tried it. I have tried laughing yoga, and it is unbelievable. I mean, so it's, for those who don't know, I mean, you can type it in Google or whatever it is, but I'll quickly sum it up now. It's you basically apparently after 45 seconds of faking laughing, so just laughing out loud and trying to laugh, you can actually not any longer fake laughing, and you would begin to start actually laughing. And that laughing is reduces stress. I mean, reducing stress obviously has clear benefits to your mental state, clearly has benefits to your physical state as well. I mean, reducing the negative energy that is around you or surrounding your tasks. But it's probably the best way to get out of a funk. I mean, I have random rituals, random little things that I watch. I mean, I watch vlogs on YouTube, completely random people that make me funny, that make me laugh or make me have a good time. I mean, you just mentioned Enya. I mean, where does that come out of? I bet you not many Phil Drolet followers know that you listen to Enya, but I think that's awesome. I think that's great. So, okay, I guess you're feeling down, but now you've gotten back up. What are some of the things? What are some of what can somebody read either on your site that you've written about of ways of being efficient, or other sites, whether it be Power of Now or different books? Where can people start getting information as to being more efficient? I know personally I've got I try and set up routines, but I also try and sometimes it's funny, but I like to stray away from routines. But I do have this one thing that I feel that has been working the best for me. And it's something I call Power Hour, which is I turn an hourglass around, and for the entire hourglass, I dedicate 1 hour of my time towards one particular task. And it's amazing how much I get done. I don't even know why I don't do it more often. But is there what life hacks have you come across that you've either written about or read about that you would suggest to people?
Yeah, well, that one that you mentioned, I do a variation of that. So, the idea is like to work like a sprinter. So you're going to work really intense for an hour, just be in the zone, and then take a break, 10, 15 minutes, listen to Enya, do whatever you like. So that's important. Probably the biggest one for me, the name of the strategy is eating the big ugly frog first.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's say you're working on a lot of projects, you have a lot of things going on. You look at your to-do list in the morning, there's, let's say, 7 different things. Out of those, maybe 3 are not very important. It's like doing laundry, cleaning your house. But you have at least 1 or 2 that are very important, that are really going to move your business forward, your project forward, whatever you're working on. And the human tendency is to want to avoid these big things, kind of like start with easy stuff first. Because, we're kind of lazy, and generally the bigger tasks are a little bit more intimidating. There might, involve some sort of, there might be a risk of rejection if you're trying to call a client, for instance. So to really, the night before, get clear on what are your 2 biggest tasks. By biggest, I mean the most important. The ones that are most going to get you closer to your goals, to whatever you're trying to achieve. And to write them down the night before. And then in the morning, when you sit down, you have to be really disciplined and not open Facebook, not open email. Ideally put your phone on airplane mode and devote the first 2 hours of your day to those big ugly frogs. So that 1 or 2 things that are really important, and be ruthless about it. I don't take meetings for the first 2 hours of my day. I never take calls in the morning. I don't talk to anybody. I just create something important. And so what happens with that? First of all, whatever happens the rest of the day, at least you've done your most important thing. So it's like if people at home are familiar with the 80-20 rule, you've already worked on your 20%. Mm-hmm. The second thing is now you gotta feel free. You're like, okay, I've taken care of the big ugly frog. Now I can eat these little things. And you just have this momentum for the rest of the day because you're kind of like, all right, I'm productive today, I'm crushing it, and that carries you for the rest of the day. So that's a huge strategy. It's simple, anyone can do it, and it changes everything.
Yeah, and I'm taking notes seriously. And no joke, I'm not even saying this for a podcast or anything. I'm actually taking notes. I seriously think I'm going to actually do that. This is a really good idea. Taking your biggest, shittiest task on first is the best thing, because that's the one that carries over in my agenda all the time. Like I've got a couple tasks in my mind right now that I'm like, yeah, I should really get to doing that. And it could be simple things too. Like it doesn't have to be work related. It could be like I'm going to clean my room or clean my desk or do whatever. It could be absolutely anything. But you mentioned a couple of things that I thought were really interesting too within saying taking on that task, which is the first that you said was dealt with planning. You said write them down the night before.
Yeah.
How integral would you say planning is into what you do? Because, I like to say sometimes that there's a degree of random that allows me to be an entrepreneur and that it would allow anybody to thrive in life. I believe that you can't absolutely plan everything, but I am an advocate of writing things down, of having a schedule and kind of going through that and working through the ideas and the list of things that I want to do. How integral would you say that is in your life? Like how much do you plan?
Quite a lot. Well, I plan the first half of my day. So
Okay.
really make sure that I know what's going to happen before noon so that I start the day off. Because one of the common mistakes that I used to make was to sit down and be like, all right, like what do I do? And start trying to make my to-do list the morning off. And then I would like lose the first 15 minutes of my day. Sometimes I would go off on the wrong track. And then if you start your day off on the wrong track, it's hard to, you kind of get this like feeling of like, oh, like I'm just off, I'm off today. And it's hard to recover. And then if you start with like something solid, then, it's totally a different story. So I would say, plan the first 2 or 3 things. Then after that, kind of take a break and then reevaluate. And one thing that I like to do is while you're working on your big tasks, you'll have like things pop into your head. Like, oh, I got to call this person. I got to email that person. I got to, do some little things. And just to have a running list next to your computer. So instead of going like, oh, I'm going to go email that person, just write it down. And like as things come to your mind, you make it take. I call it my LTs, my little things. And then in the afternoon, afternoon generally we're less. I know personally, and a lot of people I've talked to, you're not in your most creative, like powerful state. So that's when I take time to return calls and do these little things, and just kind of knock it off. And then at night, I have another boost of productive work. So I try to plan like when I come back for my night session, what's gonna be my first task, so I can just get right into it. So I do a lot of planning, but I do believe in like letting a little bit of space for serendipity.
Serendipity. Serendipity. Yeah.
The French in me comes out once in a while. So that word.
Ça arrive.
Yeah. So but I say planning is important, especially if you're working on big things, because there's so much going on that it's so easy to get overwhelmed if you don't have a solid plan of like, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and then it becomes easier to follow it.
Question: what time do you wake up in the morning?
I wake up at 8:30 every morning.
I'm surprised you actually don't wake up a little bit earlier. I'm surprised. But what time do you go to bed?
I go to bed at between 1:30 and 1:45.
Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I probably do the exact same thing. I would say every day I wake up, like I'm up for like at 7. Sometimes I do a small little task or I have an idea and I just write it down, but I leave it for later. And I make sure to go back to bed and just kind of, it's part of like me trying to dream more. It's a weird little thing that I'm doing, but, but I do, yeah, I try and be up like 8:30. And then sometimes I go to bed at like 3, but most of the time I pass out at like, 1:45 kind of thing.
Yeah, that's one thing for me. 8:30 is
do you have
early.
Like
I'm happy. I've made an effort to bring it back down to 8:30, and it's important for me to cut myself off at night. So at 12:45, I have to get off my computer because at night I feel inspired, and it's probably the same for you. You're working on stuff, you got music going on. There's something special about working at night. But then if you go up too late, then you jeopardize the next few days. And I've found that the trade-off is not worth it. So if I know I have to be done at 12:45, it just forces me to be more focused. And it's like Parkinson's law. The work expense has to feel the time allocated to it.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that. It seems like after a certain time of night, when I hit a certain wave of tired as well, even if it's not necessarily a specific time, but if I'm aware and in the now of how tired am I right now? Should I actually start doing this task, or should I just call it quits for the night? Just relax, do whatever I have to do, and then get at it tomorrow. me doesn't always necessarily mean my computer turns off, but it does mean my work turns off. Like I might turn on a TED Talk at night. I like to fall asleep to podcasts. Like I listen to Joe Rogan and stuff all the time. And I believe that even if I fall asleep to it, I learn it in my sleep or something. But yeah, no, I completely agree that at some point you just hit a wave of like tired and inefficiency, and you're better off. You mentioned the 80-20 rule. You're better off spending. Like instead of doing 3 hours of work but at 50% capacity, for example, you're better off doing 1 hour of work or half an hour of work at 100% capacity and being able to be completely focused on something. You will get so much more done being more focused, and I think there's a lot to be said about that. That being said, there's a lot of things that inspire me sometimes in random moments, but I would say that the number one thing that inspires me is people. Other people, other superheroes that I call them in my life, whether I know them physically or whether they're fictional characters. Would you say the same? Or who is your superhero? Who really inspires Phil? Who do you look up to? Who do you want to be like when you see him speaking on a stage, him or her? So not to say just the him or whatever. Be politically correct in this podcast from time to time.
You don't want to start off with a controversy in your very first podcast.
No. I mean, superhero is a common term to both men and women. I truly believe that, seriously. But so who inspires you if in person, and then who inspires you in like if you had to pick a comic book superheroes? There's the one that you watch more one growing up, and whichever order you answer, it doesn't really matter.
Right, okay. Well, I'll start with the real life one, and that'll give me time to subconsciously think about the other one. So, someone I really look up to these days, his name is Jonathan Budd. He's an entrepreneur from San Diego. He's 28, 29 years old, self-made millionaire on the internet. And the thing that I really admired about him is that he kind of combines. So, what I really look up to in entrepreneurs these days is someone who not only has the ability to get things done and get results and really kind of hustle. Like I really admire that. That's a trait that I'm cultivating myself big time. But also to be very spiritual, to be very grounded, to be connected to something greater than yourself. That's something that's important to me. And then to have a social consciousness of trying to use your talents, your gift in service to others. And Jonathan Budd is someone who does that through his businesses and the projects he's doing. And I've seen him live in an event in San Diego. One thing that I really admired is that this guy's super accomplished, but very, very authentic and willing to be vulnerable. And that's something that I admire in people, to be able to show not just like, hey, look at me, I'm super successful, but hey, I also still have these things I'm working on. I still have these fears, these insecurities. I'm not, I don't have it all figured out, because anyone who pretends they do, they're just bullshitting. And I appreciate someone who's strong enough to admit weakness. So yeah, that's someone. Jonathan Budd is probably my number one real world superhero I'm looking up to these days.
I've heard that name before, but I've never actually looked into anything he does. I've got to check it out. I don't doubt that he's a fantastic public speaker. I'm sure he is. But I agree with that. I agree with the whole real thing. Actually, and give you more time to pick your superhero. I've always loved superheroes, and I'm not going to name them just yet because it's too early in this podcast to do that. But I like superheroes I like superheroes that are real, that are just like anybody can be that person. I've always admired those kind of superheroes more so than others, and I feel like there's so many people that it can be inspiring out there, but it's always the most real ones that I've looked up to the most. I've always hated, like, I don't know why I hate this, but like mainstream pop stars or all that stuff. It's not that I hate their music. I'll be the first person to be singing in the car or something. But what I hate is that, like, there are these people who are just being taken along on this ride down the road, and they're not really being themselves. They're always kind of being politically correct, and they're just doing these talk shows, and they're not really divulging anything. They never really talk about how they're regular people or what gets them down. It's always like, be perfectly smiling, and I don't know. I just feel like somebody who's real, like a Tim Ferriss, I find is real, like a Joe Rogan, like Jonathan Budd, as you just mentioned, I guess. It's the real aspect of things. So now to the tougher question. What superhero do you like? Why do you like them? Or if that's too hard of a question, if you had to pick a superpower that you can have, what would it be and why?
Whoa, well now you're just throwing a curveball at me, like.
It's one or the other. One or the other.
Okay, well, my answer, and really I wish it was more original, but that's just what keeps coming up to my mind is simply Superman. And the reason why that is, well, first of all, Superman is, he's trying to help out people. So he has his superpowers. I guess most superheroes do that. They have these powers that they've cultivated, but they're using that not for their own benefit, but to make the world a better place. The cool thing about Superman is that he has these amazing powers he uses, but he's also a normal guy. And he's able to connect with the regular people. And that's something that I found really important, especially we're kind of climbing up to the world, to never be, get to the point where you're snob or you're kind of like disconnected from just, other people. So I like that Superman is able to go out, save the world, fly, do all this stuff, but then he gets back into Clark Kent, I think that's his name, and then just be one of the guys. And that's something that's important to me, and that I hope I can keep my whole life.
It's funny. I somehow, I don't know if I've ever asked you this question before, but I somehow knew that would be your answer, and that's why I wore a Superman t-shirt.
Awesome.
I swear on my life. No, I was sitting there, I was getting dressed, and I was like, okay, I gotta dress appropriately for this podcast. I need one of my superhero t-shirts. And I was like, who would Phil like the most? And I have Batman, I've got everything from like Goku, I've got Ninja Turtles, a whole bunch of stuff. And I was just like, I don't know, I see Phil as Superman. And I went for it, and there you go. There you had it. I'm glad that actually came up to your mind. Okay, another tough question. Very, very tough question. But actually probably pretty easy to answer because we all know what it is right away. What is your biggest weakness? What would you say is like the number one thing that you're battling on a consistent basis that's either ruining your productivity or distracting you or whatever it is?
I would say sometimes it's probably because the funny thing about weakness, our greatest strengths and our greatest weakness are kind of like they're kind of like together, right? So probably my greatest strength is I'm very driven, and I'm just like if I decide I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna give it everything I got, and I think that's probably one of my biggest superpowers. Now on the flip side of that is sometimes I get too attached to like really wanting to do it, and I get like it's like I care too much. Essentially, and that creates like frustration and suffering within myself because I'm like, I need to make this happen, and it's like sometimes I forget to, I think sometimes I could be more compassionate when I'm really in my like driven zone. I need to accomplish my goals, and I could be a better friend. I could be, I get maybe a little bit self-centered from being just so driven. And, it's a little bit ironic because a lot of things I'm trying to do are to go out and help people out there, but sometimes I neglect to be as nice, as loving, as helpful to the people in my immediate surroundings. So it feels a little bit vulnerable to admit that, but it's something I'm definitely conscious of and something I'm trying to balance. So to be driven, but to still be playful, still be a really good friend to the people around me, to give my best, but to still really have fun with it and remember it's all the game. And that whatever happens in the end is just what's meant to happen.
I feel you on that. It sucks because it's like it really is the most ironic thing of all time. That first of all, our biggest strengths are our biggest weaknesses. I could not agree more. But at the same time, that like we forget to like we are trying to help the world, and then sometimes we forget to help the people who are immediately around us. And I do this with my parents sometimes. I do it with my friends, whatever, anybody. Like I'm in the zone. I'm like, okay, you're bothering me, and I want to hang up the phone, or I just want to. I'm not as compassionate or as nice as I could be, and I can totally see. For those who don't know, Phil is an Aries, and
I knew you were gonna say that.
I have to say it. I have to. I believe in this stuff. But from what I know about Phil, he puts his head down and just charges forward, and he does it. And I've never seen somebody accomplish so many tasks so quickly and just get things done. But yeah, I guess there is the repercussion of the whole forgetting to humanize some of these tasks sometimes, and forgetting to to take a break and realize, hey, there's more important things than accomplishing my goals today sometimes.
Yeah.
Um,
Sometimes you just gotta call your grandma.
Sometimes you do need to call your grandma. Yeah, I had somebody die in my family this weekend, actually, just 2 days ago or 2 or 3 days ago. I don't know exactly when it was, but not immediate family or anything. But you forget. Like I was really thinking about that today. Like shit, man, I could die anytime.
Mm.
Like I could just die. Like, and none of these tasks would get done. And like part of me feels really anxious about that. Part of me is like, that's why I want to be more driven. But part of me, that's why I want to do more in a day and achieve more and almost like put my blinders on and charge forward. But at the exact same time, the other part of me is just like, no, that doesn't make sense. What makes sense maybe is like I should step back a little bit. Why? People who follow Valhalla, but they know we want to build this community center. Is it really the end of the world if we don't build this community center this year? No, it's really not. Is it going to be done? Yes, it absolutely will, because I'm clearly obsessed with it. So are other people, but and I'm not alone in it, and I think that's why it's going to be done. But I think, yeah, I mean, we have to remember to slow down and to bring it back.
Yeah.
But on the complete opposite side of that, instead of slowing down, instead of trying to not be so driven, if you could say that there is one task, like one thing you absolutely would love to do that is so completely out of the realm of almost possibility, like that literally pushes the boundaries of like, I don't know if I'm actually going to achieve this one on my bucket list. What would it be? Like, is there something that you could say that you would really want to do that is almost out of this world or out of the realm of possibility today, but maybe not in your future?
I really believe that everything I can envision I'm going to get done at some point. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm 26 years old, and I plan on living at least 100, so at the rate things are going, I'm confident. I think the biggest thing right now is to bring personal development as an integral part of the education system from a really young age. So that when you're 6 years old, you're already learning some of these things that we're into now. I discovered personal development when I was 23. Like, where
Mm-hmm.
was that stuff all along? Like, why was I learning about, like history and like, nothing wrong with history, but at the same time, like, it's much more important to learn how to control my emotions and how to communicate with others and how to clear my mind than to know who was the prime minister, the president 200 years ago. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what is that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we could bring meditation and just this like really basic personal development, how to manage yourself, your emotions, and how to relate to the outside world better from an early age, that would just change the world. And I think it's gonna get done. I don't know how. I don't have a clear vision of what it's gonna look like, but that's really a big thing that I hope we're gonna create in today's world.
I mean, that's first of all righteous goal. That's awesome. I think mine's a little bit more selfish, actually, truthfully. But I mean, I completely agree. I completely agree that like it's not to bash on history or some of the things that we learn in school, but I mean, if we can be, I always say that if at the best of yourself, you can help let the rest be remembered, and all the people around you be remembered. Because if you're at your top of your game, that's when you're able to give out as much positive energy around you as possible. It's simple. It's a simple technique. Like you walk into a store, somebody looks like they're having a bad day, you smile at them, make them laugh. All of a sudden, you could turn their day around. It's the exact same thing with anything in life. And that's if we learned that in school, as you're advocating here, then maybe we would want to learn history better. Maybe we would learn it more efficiently. Maybe we would care more about what we're learning in school and pay more attention. And I think the education system is like the number one thing that needs changing in this world.
Yeah, and
I
even
mean,
bullying. I mean, bullying is such a big deal, and a big reason is because compassion is not something that's being taught, and empathy, these kind of things. I mean, I don't think I was the nicest kid. I think I probably made fun of some of the other kids when I was younger. And I just didn't really know better at the time. But if when I was 5, right away they told me that you have to not only it's like don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you, but it kind of goes beyond that. It's like treat them like you wish that you were being treated, and make them feel good, and just treat everyone, try to uplift everyone around you is kind of what I try to do these days. I might not succeed at it all the time, but that's kind of my general intention. So if that was a concept we're introduced to when we're 5, like try to make other people smile and feel good Wow, like how different would things be as we reach our teens, and like those years that are a little bit harder to navigate.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think part of that stems from the fact that we have so much competition in school. Like school is this place where people have to be better than others, right? Because you have to get into the high math, and not everyone can get in, only a certain
Mm.
percentage, you know. You have to achieve and impress your parents and your teachers and all sorts of people, and there's so much pressure and competition involved in all of that it kind of we kind of lost the message, which is we're there to learn. We're not there to be better than the next person. We're not there to get the best job necessarily. We're there to get the job that we want to do and figure out what job we want to do. And we're there to learn and to socialize and to be nice with one another as opposed to bullying. And I mean, I don't know if bullying will ever be completely subsided. I don't think that's possible. I think we will always have people who are going to push others down for their own benefit of pulling themselves up. And it's a confidence thing, and it comes from home environments and different upbringings and all kinds of factors, obviously. But um, but yeah, the feel good lifestyle. I'd advocate that in a class.
But we'll see how things pan out. But there's it's gonna something like that's gonna happen for sure.
I never thought about being a teacher, and if you were, like, would you want to give a class? Like, would you teach kids?
Yeah, I would love to. I love kids. That's one of my biggest regrets in life these days is that I don't have enough kids around me, and just that
Mm,
youthful enthusiasm. I love being around kids, and I can't even remember last time that I've spent time with kids. So totally.
yeah, yeah. No, I think part of what I always do is like I'd love to do something similar. Like I went actually recently. I went to my high school and I went and gave four different speeches in four different classes, one after the other, about Valhalla, and it was such a humbling experience because it had been my dream, first of all, for the longest time. I wanted to go back ever since I heard this one man speak. His name was Alvin Powell, and he talked about drugs and how they enslave you, and he had made the NFL and a whole bunch of stuff. Anyway, really cool guy, but he was just kind of warning us about drugs, and he had the first ever personal development speech that I had ever heard, basically, was in high school, and it was this one speech, and I will never forget his speech, and I will never forget the things that he said, and I will never forget that man. And it's amazing how I wish we had more of those people in schools. I wish, people like you, people who can inspire, who can make people feel good, who can get people going, can have the time to be able to talk to these kids, even if it's one time a year that these kids get together and they sit in an auditorium and they listen to somebody who can inspire them and who speaks to them not only as kids who are confused and trying to figure out their life, but also to them as somebody who's an equal to them, not who's their teacher who's above them and who says, "Hey, I was in your position one day." And I remember sitting here and thinking these things and having these big dreams when I was your age, and go out there and do it, because this is, that's the number one thing that you can tell a kid. It's just whatever it is you want to do it. I mean, that's the number one thing.
Yeah, no, totally. That's why it was big honor for me to go and speak at some universities for the last few months, and just to be like, hey guys, I was where you are 5 years ago, and I know that even in college it's confusing because then you're about to go into the real world, and I was really grateful to be able to share a few things with them that I've figured out since. But the further back you can go, if you can speak to them when they're 10, well, that's even better because they're still piecing together everything and kind of forming their whole mental constellation. And I think the impact is probably even greater.
And how good was that? I mean, I know I saw you posted that you spoke at this university, and this had been a goal of yours for a while. Like how amazing did it feel to go and talk in front of a group of people like that?
Yeah, so I guess for people I know at home who don't know, I spoke at Stanford University in California, and that was a big deal for me because going to Stanford was one of my dreams when I was in 16, 17, and it didn't work out. I was really bummed out. But the date I found out it wasn't going to happen, I made a promise to myself. I said, I'm not going to be a student, but one day I'm going to go back and I'm going to teach some stuff. I'm going to be the one in front, dropping wisdom on the audience. So there might have been a bit of ego there, but it didn't matter. So then, years passed, and this is like a really important concept. It's easy to have these goals and these dreams and to say like one day, and always push it back. And then at some point, you have to realize, like, what the hell am I waiting for? Like, why not now? Why not give this a shot now and see what happens? So about 6 months ago, now I had that moment with the Stanford thing. I used to think that when I'm 40, I'll be ready. I was like, you know what? I think I'm ready now. Like, no one's going to ever come and tap you on the shoulder and be like, you are ready. That will never happen. You decide when you are ready, and you create your own rules. So I just tapped myself on the shoulder. I was like, you're ready. I was like, okay, cool. So I started making some moves to make that a reality. And actually, it was pretty mind-blowing. When I got to Stanford, I was speaking at a big, like, dorm, like, sort of residence, and they, all over the place, they had posters with my face on it. So all of a sudden, I was at this, like, amazing university, probably top 5 school in the world, and my face is just plastered all over the place, and I'm like, oh my God, like, I've created this out of thin air. So it was amazing, and it was very humbling at the same time, because it's like, wow, like, this is almost surreal. So it was an amazing experience. I was nervous because I made a big deal out of it, and at the same time, I was trying to, like, enjoy it, to be like, you know what, like, this is what you've been dreaming of for 10 years, like, enjoy it, be present. So it was really cool.
What was your speech about?
It was called Secrets of the World's Best Leaders.
Okay.
Essentially how, by getting personal leadership or by kind of getting your own shit together, you can become a great leader. So being a great leader is not so much about charisma. It's about personal mastery first. And then once you have your own life under control and you're really clear on what you want to create in the world, then you can turn around and inspire others to do the same thing. So I think that's a kind of missing piece. When we think about leadership, it's very external. So I wanted to bring the focus a little bit more internally and share some, like, concrete ways that the students could start becoming leaders in their own lives and then leaders in the world when they go out and graduate.
You said something really interesting there, and that was that it starts inside, right? And we've been saying this, we've said this a couple times even in this podcast, but do you think that at some point, because you said mastery, and that's the word mastery to me, or a lot of people, I guess, would sometimes be like, you've reached 100%, like you are at the top of your game, you're not going any higher because you've made it. Would you agree with that? Do you think you'll ever have a day? Because I'm just gonna assume your answer, but do you think you'll ever have a day where you think, I've made it, I did it? Like I could achieve the things that I needed to achieve. I could die tomorrow and be happy.
I mean, no. But this brings an important concept that I've been playing around in my head recently. Is like, what is success? Like, I think for a lot of us, success is this thing that's out there. Like, when I achieve this, then I'll be successful. When I achieve that, then I'll be successful. And in the past 6 months, I've reached a lot of my big goals that I thought would make me successful. And then the weirdest thing happened. I felt successful about 3 days. And then I was like, okay, well, now it's time to set some new goals. And the moment I set those new goals, I didn't feel successful anymore. I was like, oh, well, now when I reach that thing, then I'll be successful. And I'm really, grateful that I realized what was going on early on, because I think probably some people, it takes them like 15 cycles of success to realize what's going on. After like one, I was like, wait a minute. So for me, success now is kind of the process of working towards something worthwhile, like working towards goals that really inspire you, really excite you, that help other people, and doing so in a state of joy and grace and appreciation. So if you're happy right now and you're working towards making things even better, well, guess what? You are successful. Like, this is it. And so I feel like it's a really cool thing to be able to say, like, I'm successful right now because I'm on the journey, and I'm doing my best that I can, and I'm improving a little bit better. I'm getting a little bit better every day. That's to me is what's being successful. So I'm trying to feel like every day, like, I'm making it. I'm never be like, I made it, but I'm making it every day. And I think that's where the focus should be.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Wise words, my man. Wise words. All right. Well, anyway, I guess we'll end the podcast here. I mean, it was great having you. First of all, super humbled to have been, or to have you, sorry, as the first podcast of the Superhero Academy. This is something I've wanted to do for a long time, and I've been trying to get you online for a while. But it's also myself. It's a list of things, right, priorities and all that stuff. But now I've finally done it. Very happy to have had you. But before we go, I'd love for you to be able to plug anything you got coming up, your website, where they can find out more, where they can read more about the things that you're doing, any speeches or new courses or things you've got going on. So hit me up. Plug yourself here on this.
For sure. So, well, the first thing, my blog, thefeelgoodlifestyle.com, where I write different articles around personal development, all the stuff that I've been talking about for the last hour, that kind of stuff. So if you enjoyed it, you'll enjoy my articles. I'm also relaunching a program called the Superhuman Blueprint, which is a 6-week personal development course, which helps you. No problem I've identified with personal development is it can be overwhelming. There's all this stuff out there. Where do I, how do I get started? What do I focus on? How do I make sure that I'm actually applying what I'm learning? Because it's so easy to consume blog post after blog post and then feel like, is really anything is changing? Am I actually improving? Or am I just, using this drug, another article? So I've created a course that's 6 week long, that's really intense, that takes the best things I've learned over the last the last 3 years and compiles it in a way that's like, here's the top personal development concepts that you need to do that will really step up your game. And I've incorporated in a system that kind of challenges you to take action every week with some comfort zone challenges, some exercises, a community that supports you. So to make sure that you accelerate your personal development, you do it 6 weeks where you could do it by yourself in 6 months or even a year. So you can find that at superhumanblueprint.com. And I'm also launching, probably by the time that this podcast drops, something called the Superhuman Society, which is essentially a group training course for people that are into personal development that want to support each other and learn new things every week. So you can check it out, superhumansociety.com. If you're somewhere in the world where you love personal development and people around you are not that into it and you wish you had a community of people that think the same way as you, who really strive towards something better, that's what the Superhuman Society is. So come check us out and we'd love to have you.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Actually, the Superhuman Society seems like from what it sounds like, and it looks like I'm going to be joining, first of all. But from what it sounds like, it sounds like what we were looking to do when we first met, actually. Which is, people don't know, but how we met was we were looking to find a way that we can get people together either on a Facebook or some kind of website or whatever platform where we can share ideas and help support one another with the things that we've learned and the experience that we all have. So I'm glad to see that you're turning it into a class. So I will link all those things probably in the description below for people who are watching or people who are listening. You can check out our website, and I'll have a blog post with all of these things, plus some of my favorite articles that Phil has put together. So thanks again for for coming on and for spreading your wisdom, Phil. And hopefully we'll do another podcast with you at some point soon, for sure.
I think we still got one or two things we could talk about.
Absolutely. All right, have a good one.
All right, thanks, Mark. See you guys.
Did you enjoy this podcast? Be sure to share it on Facebook, Twitter, or whatever other social network you enjoy. And don't forget to subscribe. Also, be sure to rate this on iTunes. Rate it. Rate it now. Thanks for listening. And remember, until next time, fellow superheroes, through intent, you are the architects of the universe.